I'm going to talk about the civil war in Libya with Muammar Gaddafi, dictator, right? So there was a lot of negative propaganda. I guess it kind of started when Reagan went into the Gulf of Sidra and Gaddafi told him to get out, and Reagan said no. And maybe the Libyans tried to attack a U.S. warship, and the United States responded by firing missiles that may have killed some of Gaddafi's children, and some of the children as adults were found to have not been killed and survived. So things happened. And Gaddafi has immigrants that go to Italy. And I think he has good relations with Italy and maybe even with Spain. I don't know. The French hate Gaddafi and the British hate Gaddafi and the Irish hate Gaddafi. And then you had the Lockerbie bombing, which people blamed on Gaddafi. And he denied it for many years. But eventually he admitted to it and he paid like billions of dollars in reparations. You can go read about what the exact dollar amounts were. And then France and Britain started a war against Libya and overthrew him. That's what happened. It wasn't a civil war that came from the people. And I watched it while it was happening, and I said, you know, Gaddafi isn't the bad person that everybody says. He is crazy. He's a crazy person. He's senile. He has crazy ideas. For example, he invented a car for world peace. And you can search the internet and see the car that he designed for world peace. He had a theory that nobody should own well, I guess you could own a car, but you should leave your keys in your car so that anybody could drive it and go wherever they want. Because there's enough cars on the road. You just go outside, get in any car, drive where you want to go. Car sharing, he had that idea, which of course defeats the incentive of owning a car. The system doesn't work. He had one of the best economies in Africa. Maybe it was, in fact, the #1 economy. And he had great projects that he was working on. And people said he was crazy and would never be able to complete these projects. And he proved them wrong. He had the great healthcare programs. He has a great civil rights for his people, which was written in the 1970s. You should go read it. He basically declared that the people have the rights over the government, not him. That's what his civil rights document says. And it says more. I read it. I don't remember it all. But he has a civil rights document that people can read that literally grants rights to people. Even if people believe that he hasn't followed it, he's got this document. If he hasn't followed it, well, you got to say, tell me, how didn't he follow it? Saying he's a dictator doesn't explain how he didn't follow it. And then there were these rebels started fighting. And there was someone who said, I'm an expert in armaments. Those guns are Belgian rifles. That's standard issue for NATO. NATO troops get standard issue Belgian rifles. Those are Belgian rifles, and they're brand new. And they're in the hands of rebels. They were provided by NATO. The French and the British had something called, I think it was Operation Southland or something like that. And what it was is that they were doing war games that France had been attacked by a hostile neighbor to the south, Libya. And that England was going to help France defeat this country. That was what the war games were. Halfway through the war games, the civil war began in Libya. They ended the war games, and then they did it for real. They attacked a hostile neighbor to the south, which was Libya. Part of the war games was using the United Nations to get the power to use airstrikes to attack that government. And then they did that. It was part of the war games, and then they actually went to the UN, they actually got the permission, and then they actually started striking Gaddafi. And they said, well, to protect civilians. They didn't do it to protect civilians. They did it to attack Gaddafi's military so that the rebels would win. And the rebels at first was a small number of rebels. That quickly grew. Where did all these rebels come from? Where did they get the guns from? There was an American guy, a Chinese kid, who went to Libya for his summer vacation to fight in the war. And they gave him a gun, and he rode around with Libyans that he doesn't speak the language and they don't speak English. And they had some nickname for him and they cheered him on. And he spent this summer vacation with it. And then he went back to the United States. Muammar Gaddafi has, I don't know, like 7 children. He's got some sons that are absolutely crazy and insane that are known for doing sadistic things. He has another son who was educated in England, who's a pacifist, really nice guy, and they went after him. The rebels went to his house when he was there. He was on the phone at the time, and they were banging on his doors, breaking in, and they did break in, and they took him. And I don't know whatever happened to him. I don't know if we've ever heard from him again. Muammar had to flee. And did they kill him in like an airstrike or something? Like they found his vehicle and they killed him in an airstrike? I don't remember. All these things should never have happened. I'm going to tell you why. It was all about politics. The reason why they did this is because of something called the gold dinar, which you've never heard of because the media is fake news. And the media is propaganda. The gold dinar was what caused all the Western nations to be angry at Muammar Gaddafi, because Muammar Gaddafi figured out a way to beat all the rest of the nations. His idea was to get all the African nations to sell oil for a currency called the gold dinar. And they would only accept payment in gold dinars. So if you wanted to buy oil, you had to have gold dinars. If you wanted to have gold dinars, you had to acquire them, let's say using American dollars. I don't know how. With the gold dinars, you could buy oil. This ends up becoming a transfer of gold for oil. There's something about the way they did it that it was no longer accepting paper currency or digital currency. They were accepting oil for gold. This is what he pitched to African nations. There are probably photographs, videos of him talking about this. I saw photographs of him or videos surrounded by all the other African nations talking about the gold dinar and how he wanted to do this. And he said, when we do this, we will then accumulate all the gold in the world because they want the oil and they can only pay with gold. Gold will be the currency that we will accept, and they have no choice but to do it. And after he did this, people started saying somebody's going to kill Muammar Gaddafi. And then the British and the French did. And I believe that the whole thing was a corrupt conspiracy between the French and the British, not the United States. But the United States supported it. But that's what they did. That's what they did. I don't think he deserved to die. I was against his killing. He was not... He had problems, but in general, he was also making peace with people. And like I said, he was crazy. He had crazy ideas that if you read them, they'd be like, this guy's a lunatic. But there was one person who said that the people that he is surrounded by knows that he's crazy, and they just accept it, and they don't do the crazy things that he tells them to do. They know the difference between what's too far and not too far. And that's a story about Libya that there's probably going to be other people who will tell you about the gold dinar. If you research gold dinar, people will probably tell you this is somehow tied to the death of Gaddafi. You know what? I'm going to search right now and see what happens when you search gold dinar. Okay, it says it's a projected coin, which means that it hasn't been done yet. And no, it was used in the past in 696 AD, I guess. I don't know. It says CE, and they changed it because they have to make it easier for everybody to be confused. And I'm going to tell you the fourth link on Google, it says Gaddafi's gold money plan would have devastated dollar. That's what someone says. What someone else says, RT News, which is Russian, saving the world economy from Gaddafi. May 5th, 2011, a gold dinar would have had serious consequences for the world financial system, but may have also empowered the people of Africa. Here's an interesting one. November 4th, 2018, Hillary emails reveal NATO killed Gaddafi to stop Libyan creation of, and then it doesn't say, as many conspiracy theorists will claim, which I came with this on my own, one of the real reasons to go to Libya was Gaddafi's planned gold dinar. One of the 3,000 Hillary, and then it stops. So I'm going to go to this article. You can search on gold. I think I just searched gold dinar. Creation of gold-backed currency. Its primary concern was protection. Okay, forget that. Now we want to look for email, right? Released by the state on New Year's Eve, has revealed evidence that NATO's plot to overthrow Gaddafi was fueled by first their desire to quash the gold-backed African currency, and second the Libyan oil reserves. So there you have it. Were you told that NATO overthrew Libya by the mainstream media? Were you told about the gold dinar and its impact on the world economy and how it would affect the US dollar? You were not, and you didn't know about it until you watched this video. And I knew about it because I don't believe the media, and I research everything that I think is BS. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.